Thank you for joining this session on HR planning. And I'd like to always start off with, not only do you have to know everything about employment law and health and safety and compensation, now we need to also be fortune tellers. We need to look into that future. So be strategic HR people and plan, and plan again. Let's get started. We're going to cover what is HR planning, is strategic importance to not only you, but also the business. We're going to talk about the 4 stages of forecasting. I'm going to arm you with lots of website links in our announcements, the different kinds of market conditions that affect forecasting and that fortune telling aspect. We're going to talk about the difference between quantitative and qualitative techniques. Quantitative is a numbers game. Qualitative is some of that soft skills, some of that soft, don't think of it as a hard technique. Talking about also how that balancing act for organizations and how they deal with that labor market's shortfall, or when you have too much. What are some strategies that you and HR need to bring to the table? And sometimes you'll be asked to do these things like layoffs. So HR planning, think of it as fortune telling in a way that you're forecasting, you're planning for the right number of employees that have the right skills, right knowledge, right abilities, those KSAOs at the right time. And it has to, again, be tied to companies' overarching objectives, goals, strategy. So HR planning is not the corporate decision maker of using Magic 8 Ball. If any of you have seen this, you shake this Magic 8 Ball, you ask it a question. It's kind of like a mini fortune telling. That is not what HR planning is. So I invite you to, use your group to answer some of these questions. What are some costs for inadequate planning? Look at what we're going through with COVID. What are some of the strategies that some of the companies have used and have not used? Are you going to plan in advance, not only for labor market supply and demand, but also planning for COVID or a financial meltdown or an acquisition? Have you done a SWOT analysis? Have you yourself ever worked for a company or an organization that has that inadequate HRP planning? So think of bouncing ideas off of one another, because everything is a lesson learned, everything that worked right and everything that didn't work right. So why do we do it? It helps the company meet the strategic goals and objectives, which is their strategy. It also achieves economies of scale in hiring new employees. It also helps with promotion, also thinking about how are we moving people up that corporate ladder. Making sure that we do have proper pipeline that's tied to the company's business life cycle. What does the company need in terms of demands? Have you met with that operations manager? Have you not? I highly recommend you do. You need to know what is the company's life cycles, what are their peaks and valleys, when do you need to bring people on board, when you don't. Think of retail. At December, that is the heaviest time for retail. And then they let go of people in January and February. They may keep some people in January for returns, but everybody's shopping November, December in a Canadian context. And then they return in January, even Boxing Day, big sales for Canada. So thinking about avoiding too many people and not enough people. And keeping in mind the biggest expenditure for business is labor cost. It can be up to 80% of a company's budget. So if you've got $1 million budget and you have 80% going towards labor costs, which is compensation, benefits, vacation, statutory holiday, all that good stuff, $800,000 is gone towards labor costs. You only have $200,000 left to run the business. So now you have to put on a savvy financial hat on. I'm not going to explain all these in great detail. The textbook does a good job of this, but you have to decide, how are you going to measure this? What is your yardstick? What tools and techniques are you going to use? Are you going to use them all? Fine, but do you have any other work to do? So you have to manage your time. You have to look at, what does the company need? And where are you going to get that talent pool from? Where are you going to source that supply? So what does the company need? You can use those on the far right-hand side, the quantitative. And there's everything from trend to scatter plots to regression analysis. Quantitative, if you love numbers, that is the one for you. If you want to do ratio analysis, go to town. If you want to do all four, go to town. But you have to manage your time. So I recommend pick one and only one. You can use qualitative along with that, looking at nominal group, Delphi techniques, leverage Deloitte reports, Gartner reports. They're fantastic. And we're going to talk more about this high level. You can use both, but again, you have to manage your time. Now, once you've decided what does the company need in terms of labor, now you're going to have to match that with supply. Are you looking internally? Are you looking externally? Are you looking internally, looking at the techniques used in the left-hand box? Are you looking at your HRIS system? Do you have a succession plan? Do you or don't you? Do you have an idea of how you are going to succeed as an HR person? You may enter as an HR assistant or coordinator, but are you going to move all the way up the corporate ladder to CHRO? Do you have replacement charts? If you move up that corporate ladder, who's going to replace you? Markov analysis is a technique. I will give you a Dr. Nancy wonderful video. She's fantastic. I love her. She's going to explain the Markov analysis. You may use that predominantly for manufacturing or for tech firms, but it can be applied in other firms as well. You have to consider your company's, first of all, strategy, what policies you have in place for recruitment, retention. Do you have an employee referral program? Are you leveraging that? What are you using? Indeed, LinkedIn? What are you using, right? What's your plan? What's your business model? What's your strategy? Are you also looking at not only your company's life cycle, but the economy? If you're in gold mining, you better look at the gold stock, right? What's happening there? If it's rising, then you're in the growth mode, but you're now competing for limited resources of external labor market supply with the other gold mining companies around the world. So looking at labor market trends, looking at Statistics Canada, looking at the news, looking at your external environment as well as your internal environment. When you have decided with the operations manager and the executive team, what does the company need today, next month, next quarter, next year, you need to find out what is the gap. Do you have a shortfall of employees by 100 employees, 10 employees, 10%? You need to find out where are you going to get those people. Are you going to leverage your employee referral program? If you don't have one, kickstart one. Are you going to use career fairs? Where are you going to cast your pool? You have to cast your net in that big, huge pool of employees. And what are you going to use, right? So you have to determine what is the gap and what techniques are you going to use. As I mentioned earlier, please watch the news, but watch lots of different kinds of news. Also, use HRPA, use project management. If you're into project management, you want to leverage the PMI. Looking at what technology trends are happening, what robots are happening, demographic trends are happening, looking at your market conditions, what laws, look at Ford. He made changes to Kathleen Wynne's bill 148, and then there were subsequent changes, or talking about subsequent changes. Looking at the steps, you're going to have to do this as a group. Do not do this on your own. Make sure you leverage other people because you want to get people's buy-in, but you also want to use them as subject matter experts and dividing the work. You need to look at forecasting labor market supply. Are you using Statistics Canada? Are you using HRPA? What are you using to look at the availability of your candidates? Are you going global or are you going just Toronto? You need to look at this. What are you going to use as your baseline? Are you going to use Last? Are you going to use Indeed, LinkedIn? What are you going to use to forecast, right? So you have to always look at white papers, look at Delphi technique, nominal technique, which we're going to talk about. Leverage these experts. Demand is your internal demand. And are you pipelining? Are you tying that into business life cycle? You are the HR expert. You need to do this gap analysis. You need to support your executives by being business savvy and understanding this. And you need to make sure you have the right talent at the right time, not too much and not too little. It's like baking a cake. You can't put too much stuff in there. You can't put too much sugar because it's going to be too sweet. Can't put in too much eggs because then it's going to be a wet cake. So you got to make sure you have the right recipe. So forecasting the availability, are you looking at internal? Are you using your HRIS system? Are you training people? Are they even ready? Do they want to do this? Do they want to move up the corporate ladder? Maybe they have plans for a family. Maybe they have plans for a month trip. Maybe they plan on opening up a hospital in another country. This may impede on what the person wants to do. Did you even talk to them? Externally, where are you going to cast that net that I talked about earlier? Are you leveraging also recruitment firms? Could you even pick their brains? I recommend it. Now, your skills inventories, I invite you yourself to create your own knowledge, skills, and abilities inventory. Use an Excel spreadsheet, use a Word document, even old school, write it down. What skills do you bring to the table when you go for an interview? You need to also look at the inventories for management and people that don't have those management skills. How are you going to bridge that gap? Are you going to create a mentorship program? Are you going to send them to Schulich for $5,000 a week, leadership training? Are you going to train them? Are you going to give them maybe some free resources, YouTube, books? Could you coach as well as the HR advisor? We're going to look at replacement charts, succession planning, and Markov analysis in a minute. Here is a sample replacement chart. Don't get too caught up in the busyness in this. All you need to worry about is how did they do in their past performance review? Were they outstanding, excellente, or do they need lots of improvement, or they're almost ready to be walked out the door? Promotion, are they ready? Are they willing? Do they have plans for a baby? Do they have maybe a sick parent? Maybe they just want to stick to what they're doing. Did you have that conversation with them? So it's one thing to have the knowledge, skills, and abilities, but are they motivated? Are they ready? And are you also arming them to succeed? Do not let people to fail. So thinking about if the vice president of, let's say, HR is about to leave, who's going to be the next contender? Is it the HR manager? Is it maybe somebody from another department? Is it external? How are we going to replace these people? So my recommendation is have the conversation with people. What do they want to do moving forward? Skills inventory, like I said, try this yourself. Create an Excel spreadsheet of the knowledge, skills, and abilities that you bring to the table, your competencies. Do you have team, leadership experience? Write that all stuff down. Management, have they had a budget? How big was the team? Was it international? Do they know how to lead a team remotely? Remote teams, dotted line responsibility. What were their responsibilities? Did they have health and safety experience? Do they not? Thinking about, are they also interested in moving up that proverbial corporate ladder? Replacement charts is those what if scenarios as well, in terms of if somebody leaves, you're going to have an empty spot. How are you going to fill that? Are you going to keep moving people up that ladder? Are you going to bring people externally? You need to know that there's going to be a hole in your org chart. How are you going to fill that? So looking at people's interest, if promotability, do they want to be promoted? Can they learn? Are they motivated? What do they bring to the table? Succession planning, not a lot of companies do this, unfortunately. They kind of go by the seat of their pants, but you need to start developing your staff. You need to develop yourself. That's why you're in the courses. But how can you move up that corporate ladder unless you have a plan? What is your future plan for 1 year, 5 year, 10 years? You need to ask your staff this. You need to find out about people's particular career paths. What do they want to do? Do they want to have a remote assignment, a special assignment? If they're working, let's say, for Nestle's at Young & Shepherd and they're an HR manager, they want to maybe in 5 or 10 years go to Vevey, Switzerland and work at the headquarters there. Have you had that conversation with them? What is the company's overarching demand for managers and professionals? What are they looking for the skills today and moving forward? What are the HR skills today? What are the HR skills forecasted in 5 to 10 years? Use HRPA, use textbooks, use Deloitte Consulting, use all these things. Markov analysis is just one forecasting tool and technique. You do not have to use this, or you can use this with other techniques. But keep it in mind, this is regarding employee movement patterns. And you see it in a matrix. So let me go to the next slide and you're going to see a better observation of this. Dr. Nancy, which I'm going to give you a video link to in the announcements page, and in the shared resource section. She does a great job of explaining how people transition or move within different departments. Now, don't get caught up by the busyness here. But what it is truly used for predictive models for your current staffing needs and how those people move into different departments and roles. And how does that affect your manufacturing operations? Do you have a hole? If you have a hole, you're going to have to fill it. Are you using a temp? Are you using somebody else? So thinking about all these things of different techniques that you can use, they're non-exhaustive. You may even want to use a consultant, leverage an accounting department, or leveraging the operations department to do that Markov analysis for you. There's software out there that can help you, so don't get caught up on that. Looking at your external environment, like I said earlier, you need to be cognizant of the news. You need to find out what employment standards at, what is the minimum wage, what is the interest rate. If you're working in gold mining, you need to know what the price of gold is, what is the unemployment rates, because if there's a huge unemployment rate and lots of people are looking for work, you know it's an employer's market, which means the employer is going to take advantage and they can nickel and dime people. It's not ethical, it's not fair, but you have to understand who's empowered to arm yourself with this knowledge. So if you have plentiful of people that are looking for work, that means there is a sense of desperation. That means people with lots of knowledge, skills, and abilities may ask for a minimal job, underemployed, but when the economy picks up again, what ends up happening is they're going to leave you, and rightfully so. You've nickeled and dimed them, so they're going to leave you. So make sure you're paying people right, but understand who has the power. Labor market conditions also affects looking at it demographically. In Canada, we are service-based, lots of education, predominantly women. So looking at how does that affect how we're going to pay these people, how we're going to attract them, how we're going to retain them. Looking at market conditions, we've been talking for 20, 30 years, the war on talent for tech people, engineers, software engineers. So understanding that now artificial intelligence, those supply are really hard to find. High in demand, low in supply. That means somebody with an AI data scientist background can ask for the world. Looking at your demand, looking at your current turnover rates, your retention strategies, looking at your business life cycle. Are you in retail? Your busy time, if you're selling jewelry, is Mother's Day, followed by Valentine's Day, and then in Canadian context, December. So understanding your business life cycle as well. Looking at your fiscal responsibility, your financial resources. If labor costs 80% of your company, you're going to have to be very, very tight in how you recruit those people, how you're going to keep those people. Are there changes in technology? Look at the self-tellers at Shoppers Drug Mart, at banking. How are people banking? They're banking online. So now you need to have educated people for that have good tech skills, multitasking. Customer service is always going to be in demand. Quantitative approaches, we have different kinds of approaches, looking at past employment levels to predict future needs, a trend analysis for Ford or the car companies. How often do they have to recruit or let go? Ratio analysis, looking at quotas for salespeople. What quotas did they bring in for that month? What revenue, cost, or dollars do they bring in? Scatter plotting. I have not seen it in business, but I'm sure operation uses it quite regularly. Regression analysis, statistical approach. Again, this is more at an operations level. Leverage the operations team. Leverage your HRIS. Even Excel could do this for you. So they have a regression analysis toolbar. Use that, use YouTube. But when you go to these companies, they're going to have all this stuff set up anyway. And it's probably the operations manager that's doing this, so partner with them. Looking at the relationship between the hospital size and how many nurses do you need, and how many beds are they going to take care of. This is really important for hospitals. And projecting how much volume. Is there an anticipation for COVID? Could you use this for COVID? How many PSWs you need? How many nurses do you need? So thinking about working with the different departments and heads and partnering with them with this. The qualitative approach, we're going to learn nominal and Delphi technique. The difference between the two, they're basically a group of experts, think tank. One is face-to-face, one is not. That's all you need to know. Face-to-face interaction, or is it more of a introverted, let's add stuff on a Wikipedia style? So nominal is that face-to-face. The group of experts meet face-to-face roundtable. Well, because of COVID, it's going to be a Zoom session, but you understand who's contributing, what are you contributing, lots of dialogue, deconstructing one another's ideas. Versus the Delphi, think of the introverts, okay? They get to work on a Wikipedia page. They get to build on policies and procedures with version control, but you never see the person. It's anonymous. So thinking about what are you going to use? Are you going to use that nominal or Delphi technique? Or both? Could you use both? But keep in mind the time you have and people's comfort level. Are they introverted? Are they extroverted? Staffing tables. Do you have a head count? What does it look like? If you've worked in retail, you've seen staffing tables by the week, by the month. Operations department. If you have a shortfall, your production isn't going to happen. You're not going to have enough cars. So make sure that you have enough cars for Ford when they roll out in September the new 2021 cars. Make sure your hiring freezes. Oops, sorry, I went back. Your hiring freezes. You may have to, there's other strategies, layoffs. If you have too much, you may have to give early retirement. You know, looking at severance packages and people's offer letters. You may have to transfer people if you have a shortfall, overtime, promote. What are your strategies? You have one even. So thinking about all this is super important for you. So I want to thank you. There's different strategies. Look at what's happening now in the news with Amazon, with Google, any firm at all. What are they doing? Hertz is going through bankruptcy. Looking at your external environment for what's working, what's not, is going to bode you well in HR. Thank you.